Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Worth a Listen. I am your host, Chris Haney, and joining me today again is Wes Chancler. Hey Wes, how you doing?
Doing good, Chris. How are you doing?
So Wes, I brought you on a little bit ago and we talked about commercial insurance, but you also have another avenue at which you offer to members, do you not?
I do.
Talk to me
And
a little bit about that. What is that avenue?
the avenue is, we like to say personal insurance,
Okay.
right? So that's your auto, home, renters, RV, boat, motorcycle, and even pet insurance.
Well, I get auto, home, and stuff like that, but pet insurance? You offer pet insurance to people?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about some of these insurances. Obviously, we all know medical insurance, and most of us probably know auto insurance, but talk to me a little bit about auto insurance offerings. What is auto insurance? Why do we need it? What does it protect us from?
Yeah. So auto insurance, the state requires a basic liability. So when we look at the liability on the auto insurance side, we're looking at individual liability, total liability for the vehicle, and then also property damage. So not just including the vehicle, but if you get in an accident, you hit someone's house or any of their personal property or city property, that's going to it's going to come with a cost, has to be replaced. So that's the basic when we look at auto insurance. Now the reason why is because people are not very good drivers.
So, with auto insurance, does auto insurance cover classic cars all the way to sports cars?
Yeah, so we cover classic cars, imports from different countries. So when we look at auto insurance, it covers a large category of vehicles.
Okay. And inside that insurance, I'm sure all your major chains and everything are there, but when it comes to kind of a credit union and your group, what sets you apart from my larger competitors?
Yeah, so one of the things for Texell Insurance is we shop through multiple carriers. And one of the things that we're going to look at is just not price, but also coverages. We want you to have the best of both worlds. One of the most important coverages is uninsured, underinsured motorists.
Well, oh, what is that? I think I know where we're going here, but what is that?
Uninsured and underinsured. So when we look at uninsured, if you were to be hit by someone that doesn't have insurance, that portion of it will cover for your bodily injury and then also the damage sustained to your vehicle. Now you have the underinsured, which is a theme that's becoming more constant, right? There's a state minimal coverage in Texas, which that state minimal limit, if you're looking at split limits, is $30,000 per person, $60,000 per accident. So those two amounts would be used for bodily injury, and then $25,000 for property damage. That is for the repair or replacement of your vehicle or any damage to your property. So in those two situations, let's say someone hits you, doesn't have insurance, they can't pay for your medical bills, and they can't pay for the replacement of your vehicle. Well, your company would take care of you.
Yeah, I can't get past this that it's a flip of a coin. If I get into an accident, it's literally a flip of a coin whether or not that other driver has insurance or not, and that just amazes me. So we're almost forced, right, to get that uninsured, underinsured motorist, I guess, rider or addition into the policy. Does that come standard with all auto policies?
So it does not come standard. For us, we definitely want to include that in the base of the quote. We also include liability limits higher than the state minimal limits. And this is the reason why, like, you get it's not uncommon to see a truck being driven in Texas, right?
Right.
Most likely that truck will be worth over $25,000. If you get hit by someone that has state minimal limits and they only have $25,000 worth of coverage, what will happen if the cost of repairs or just the replacement of your vehicle is more than that 25,000?
You're just talking about the value of the vehicle because as you say 25,000, I'm thinking to myself, I can't go to a single dealership and buy a truck for 25,000. That's just value at the time of accident.
Yeah, value at time of accident, or I think that's a different conversation. But
Okay.
but even outside of, like, you have a F-250, let's say a 2023, right? You're looking at the value of that vehicle. It could exceed that 25,000 and get in an accident. You could look at someone has a Jaguar. They have a very nice Lexus, right? So they're having these different type of vehicles that have more value. And you want to make sure you have the right coverage for that. So when we look at auto insurance, our conversation when we have with our clientele base is going to be fitting their needs and fitting who are the drivers on their policy, right? What area are you in? Looking at zip codes and how much do you drive, right? We have some people that may work remotely, so they don't drive that much, but you have some people that drive an hour every day to work, right? So there's going to be a lot of conversation that we have with our clientele base. We are not the agency where you're just calling, hey, I want the cheapest thing, and then you walk out the door and then you find out the policy that you're paying for doesn't really help you in a time of need.
Does mileage matters when you're looking at auto policies? So if someone drives 10 miles a week, are they going to get a less, I guess, is their premiums going to be lower than someone who drives 500 miles a week?
Yeah, so in that scenario right there, depending on the carrier, you could see a difference in premium. Mileage is very important, and that's a very important question to answer when we do ask it, right? So when we do look at the mileage standpoint, that also goes into what carrier may fit your need. There are some carriers that's a little bit more price sensitive to that than others, and that's going to be part of that conversation.
I guess because ultimately the insurance is to cover the cost of the vehicle if something were to happen to it. There's depreciation. I mean, the vehicle doesn't cost the exact amount that you bought it for as soon
Yeah.
as you drive it off the lot. And so I guess mileage comes in there as well. So it allows you to understand how that depreciation will work on the vehicle so that you can write a better policy. And so you're not maybe over insuring and over premiuming that member, correct?
Big things when we look at like the topic of over insuring. Is that a possibility? 100%, depending on the situation. But um, you hit one car on the highway that hits another car that hits another car that hits another car, they're going to trace back the liability, everything to the initial car that started the accident.
But I have insurance, so what if my insurance doesn't cover all of that? Can I be personally then liable for, I guess, the cost of repairs that my insurance doesn't pick up?
Potentially.
Okay. I guess that's through suit. You sue me for the cost. Is it small claims or I guess just depends?
It depends on the situation. I mean, Chris, I wouldn't sue you, but in that situation, yeah, you could definitely like going through small claims court, depending on what level the accident was. Yeah, it could definitely get to the point to where it kind of hits your doorstep in terms of financial responsibility.
Let's see. Are there things that we can do to, I guess, make our policies more economical? Like when you said you had conversations with folks looking for auto policies, what are some of the questions that you ask, and how can those answers affect either the policy costing more or less?
Yeah, so we're always going to look at how can we get the most discounts for you. Um, have you, what level of education have you completed? That could potentially be a discount. Where do you work? What field do you work in? And what is your current job title? That could have an effect on potentially your rate. Also, if you have any teenagers on your policy, do they get above a 3.0 grade average or a B average? That's also a discount on your policy as well.
On my auto policy? Because I
Mhm.
have a smart kid?
Yeah.
Just because they make A's, I can get a discount. What about, I see online and on the TV, safe driving discounts. Can you get safe driving discounts, and what are those about?
So the language of that differs depending on the company, but generally when you look at like a safe driver discount, that's looking at your driving history, seeing, okay, have you had any accidents? Have you had any traffic violations? So I like any speeding tickets? Did you run a stoplight? Anything of that nature? And if you have not, then a lot of carriers will put in a safe driver discount.
Okay. What other things inside of policies that you can, I guess, mess around with to help make the policy, I guess, more economical? So I'm thinking about college students
Hmm.
just getting out into the world, right? And I don't have a lot of money, or we don't have a lot of money. We're trying to cut corners and make ends meet. What are some tips for those folks that may need to cut or may need to be on a little bit more of a budget? What are some things that you can do inside of a auto policy that can help save someone a little bit of money?
So in that situation, right, and I've had plenty of those over my career. we're always going to steer it towards the value, right? When we look at insurance as a whole, um, it, for some group of people, they don't see the value in insurance, which is completely understandable because it's not a tangible type of item, right? But insurance, when you need it, you definitely need it at that moment. So, what we would do, and one of our strengths is we do have several of the top companies within the nation that we offer. So, let's say someone does call in or email us or just walks through one of our branches and say, "Hey, I feel like my policy's too high. Can I take a look at it?" Guess what? We could relook at that policy with some other carriers. We could still give you those same coverages that you currently have and see if we could get you down a little bit lower. Now,
Okay.
I will say what we see now from a technological standpoint to potentially lower people's rates is through telematic devices. So let's say someone comes to me saying, "Hey, Wes, I'm a fantastic driver. I want to get a little bit of a lower rate." Depending on the company that you have with us, we may be able to offer a telematic device that does track your driving for a period of time. And with a lot of our carriers, they could give you discounts up to 30% off on your insurance.
That's that little thing that you plug into your vehicle and it monitors how you drive and reports it to the insurance company. And if you drive under these limits, if you will, that's where you're going to get that discount on your policy.
Yep. And the good thing is now with some of our carriers, it could be an app that you download on your phone too. So you don't have to plug in anything in your vehicle.
I see. Auto insurance is kind of the big one, right? That's what everybody knows. But there's other types of insurances I think that consumers really need to know about. And I think what I want to talk about is homeowners insurance. What is homeowners insurance and how is that advantageous to me?
Yeah. So homeowners insurance covers for majority of people within the United States, their biggest asset, physical asset, right? When you look at your home, homeowners insurance covers in a few different parts, right? So they cover the actual building for the home. It covers you for the liability and the medical. So let's say someone comes to your house, slip and fall, and man, your best friend of 3 years, now they're suing you. You could have coverage for that.
Right. So just because someone gets in an accident on my property, getting out of their car, they slip on my driveway, I'm liable for that?
Potentially.
Why?
Man, we're in a sue happy world, and even your best friends will turn on you, Chris.
So I need something to protect myself. And so my homeowner's policy will have some sort of personal liability to it that if someone gets hurt on my property, then I just claim that with my homeowner's policy?
Yeah. So if something happens within your home on your property and you get sued, you could potentially use your homeowner's policy, the liability aspect. Got a story for you when we're talking about personal liability side. Wrote a client here a few years ago, and she was making sandwiches out of her kitchen that she gave to her 5-year-old son.
Okay.
Took it to his kindergarten class, and everyone got sick.
How not nice.
It's not nice
Ouch.
at all.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it ended up in her being sued. But the personal liability actually covered that because she made the sandwiches in her home.
So just by having that homeowner's insurance and that personal liability attached to it, she was able to successfully, I guess, mitigate the lawsuit that came about from her just trying to do a good deed, but some unfortunate event happened.
Yeah.
That's odd. What about property in homeowners insurance? I apologize. I thought homeowners insurance just had to deal with the physical building, the home. So that is true, though. It does cover the home.
Yep. So it covers the home. So if you have fire, and there's different perils that are covered depending on what type of form that you purchase for your policy. But good example, we had a freeze. We had a freeze again in Texas here.
I remember that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I do too. So when we look at like the freeze, for example, let's say within someone's home, the pipes, it froze and burst, right? There was a lot of water damage. Well, if you have the right policy with the right endorsements, you would have coverage for that. But one of the more underrated coverages within homeowners insurance is loss of use. And
Loss of what?
loss of use. So
Tell me about that.
yeah,
This is the first time I've ever heard that before.
I got you, Chris. So with loss of use, let's say, for example, the freeze happened and you cannot live in your home. You know why? Because your electricity shut off. It's -2 degrees outside. And if you stay in your home, you may freeze to death. Now, the loss of use on your homeowner's insurance, and this is also applicable on the renter's insurance as well, because loss of use is included on the renter's insurance, but it would pay for your hotel and then also potentially food as well. So in that situation, when the freeze happened, if we had clientele reaching out to us saying, hey, there's no way I could stay in my home because electricity is shut off due to weather perils. Hey, we're going to go ahead and get you connected, obviously through the carrier. And then we're going to try to set you up in this hotel so you and your family don't freeze.
That's amazing. To be honest with you, I didn't even realize that you could get so much out of your homeowner's insurance. What about my appliances? Does homeowner's insurance also help cover my appliances? I'm thinking my washer and dryer, they go out. I didn't get a warranty through whatever company I purchased them. Does my homeowner's insurance cover that?
So there's an endorsement called equipment breakdown. A lot of carriers do cover that. And in the situation where the equipment breaks down, now there's a lot of language in terms of how you get to the breakdown, but potentially you could have coverage for that.
Okay. And what doesn't homeowner's insurance cover? I guess that maybe that'd be a better question. What does it not cover?
Yeah. It goes back to forms, but when you look at like a basic home policy, generally like flood isn't covered or like earthquake is covered. Now, the cool part is you could add an endorsement now with some carriers have earthquake coverage. You're like, what? I've heard earthquakes and I've been here since 1962 or whatever. Look, you can still get that added. But when you look at like a general home policy in terms of endorsements that have to be added, earthquake coverage, if you want like flood insurance, that's a separate thing from homeowners insurance.
But sometimes you're required to get flood insurance if you live in a flood table or an area that's prone to flooding. Your home requires flood insurance.
Yes.
So you would say in areas that don't have that risk, it's not a requirement, but it's something that you can get just in case mayhem happens.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you mentioned something earlier that also piqued my interest. You said renter's insurance. So I can get insurance on something that I just rent, like an apartment. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So for renter's insurance, one of the things I said, especially starting off my career, was this is one of the best insurance, pound for pound and really price for price. With a lot of carriers for as little, from a range of $10 to $15 a month, you can have coverage over all of your personal property within the resident that you're renting. You could also have the personal liability as well, along with the loss of use. And along with that, you can add additional endorsements. So, like, for example, if there's any type of water damage that may come through the apartment, you can have specific coverage for that through an endorsement. Let's say someone breaks into your home and steals all your personal property. Well, the great thing with renter's insurance is that will be covered. And what a lot of people don't know is, let's say you're renting a home or you're staying in an apartment. Yes, they may have insurance over the structure that you're living in, but that doesn't mean that they cover your personal items.
See, I was about to ask that because I remember from our last conversation how we talked about businesses having those general liability policies or business owner policies, and that the property loss of income, those things were wrapped up into those policies. So my question was going to be, well, if I'm renting and my tenant has those type of policies, why do I need a renter's policy to go on top of that?
This is where, and I'm coming from different angles here, but like, as if I'm the tenant, I want to make sure all my personal property is covered. I want to make sure because I'm going to be exposed to liability, that I have coverage there. And most importantly, I want to make sure if there's a fire 2 apartments away from me and it catches my apartment on fire, that I have somewhere where I could stay and I don't have to come out of pocket for it. Now, as a landlord, I definitely recommend, if you have tenants, you need to require renter's insurance.
So landlords can require that tenants pick up renters insurance.
Yes.
Do all apartment and rental companies require that?
Can't speak for all, but there's a large majority of within apartment complexes within Bell County that do require that.
Becoming more
Um,
popular than you'd say.
Definitely becoming more popular.
Okay. Um, can I contact you for renters insurance? Or is that something that the apartment complex or whatnot will tell me about?
Yeah, so your apartment complex or your landlord, they're going to tell you, hey, we require $100,000 for personal liability on your renter's policy. And that's generally the only requirement. And if you want to give us a call, going through A through Z to get you a renter's policy will take us anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to get you situated. So it's a very quick phone call. If you want to pop in for a few minutes, we could definitely take care of you there and get you the right policy to fulfill the needs of the apartment complex or whatever the landlord's asking.
Okay. And so inside that renter's insurance, it also gives the, I guess, personal protection, that general liability protection. But again, the the tenant is not going to have that on their building. So if someone were to get hurt on, technically it's the tenant's property, right? Their insurance should cover it.
Yeah. So give you a good example here. Let's say, um, looking at one of my investment properties, I have my tenant, they throw a party and party got really crazy. Someone slipped and fell while they were drunk and they hit their head, really got hurt. Um, that individual doesn't have the right coverage on their side, so they're trying to seek money. They get a lawyer. They're going to sue the person that they were part of, the person that they were at their house, and they're going to sue them for money to try to pay for their medical expenses. Right? That's where you want to make sure you have the personal liability standpoint as the tenant because you want to make sure you limit your exposure. But then as a landlord, you want to make sure you could tap into their policy to make sure you use that, right? Before you have to tap into yours. So as a landlord, of course, you want to cover insurance to cover the structure, general liability. That's going to be included in the landlord policy. But you also want to make sure the tenant has that liability as well on their side.
So I guess then the what you would suggest is don't is get your own insurance. You never know what the other party has or does not have. So protect yourself first.
100%. You want to protect yourself first.
Gotcha. What else besides homeowners insurance, renters insurance, and car insurance do you offer?
Yeah, so we offer pet insurance, which a lot of people I've been finding out over the years love pets. They absolutely love their dogs, their cats, and they're part of their family. Now, one of the things is owning a pet and having a pet part of your family is when they get sick, they need surgery, something happens. It's very costly, and that's where pet insurance could definitely migrate a lot of that cost away from you. Now, when we look at pet insurance operates on a reimbursement basis, right? So let's say the surgery for your dog is $3,000. Depending on what type of policy you have, you get up to 80% of that back into your pocket. Now, the great part about the pet insurance that we offer is you are covered with any veterinarian, any type of vet hospital within the United States. As long as you could show proof of payment, you send it in, and then you get your reimbursement back.
Okay. Well, I'm a big money saver. I like to do what I can to save where I can. Wes, if someone were to get multiple types of policies, let's say they contact you for a auto policy, and you notice they also have a home owner's policy with yourself as well. Do you combine those together? Do you give people one kind of clean bundle, if you will? And is that more economical for them than just getting, policy here, policy there?
Yeah, and it is definitely those bundle discounts do help a lot, and that's what we definitely look for. And the great part with our agency, Chris, is this. We're going to look at it from an economical sense. What's the best in your situation? And I've quoted thousands and thousands and thousands of people in my career, and I've seen it all different types of ways. I've seen it where the bundle discount was the most cost effective for clientele, but I also seen where we're saving you so much money with this carrier for auto, and we're saving you a lot of money with this carrier for home that it makes sense that you go with two separate carriers in that situation versus bundling together. So the great part with this agency is we give you the best of both worlds and we give you the options of it. And quick tidbit here, which is super important, there was a law passed where companies cannot force you to bundle. That law was passed late last year.
Where they cannot force you to bundle.
They cannot force you to bundle.
Were they, prior to that ruling, forcing people to bundle?
Basically. So telling people, hey, you cannot get this auto unless you get the home.
I see.
Right.
And so now they've removed that. Have you seen folks, now that they've removed that, kind of go to different companies to get what they want here, get what they want there?
So a lot of people aren't even aware of that. It's part of my job to know insurance law. So,
Understood.
but one of the things with that is just every single person that needs insurance just being aware of the laws and things that are being said to you. And that goes back to how our agency is structured. We want to make sure that you're taken care of, just completely taken care of. And regardless of whether the bundle's the best, whether it's better to have just with two different companies or three different companies. Let's say you have auto, you have a home, and you have a motorcycle, and it makes sense for those three separate lines to be with three separate companies. We're here to make sure that we put you in the best position, giving you the best coverage with the best price.
Nice. Well, Wes, as we wrap up here, I want to tell you I've noticed something during our conversation. Every time you tell me a story, every time you start talking about insurance coverage, I notice a gigantic smile on your face. I'm assuming you love what you do.
Yeah, I would say I've been an insurance agent now for 9 years, and why I gravitated so much to it was we're just not like selling a product. Like we are here to help bad situations not become worse. And we're really here to make sure we offer the best options, not just to our membership base, because we could offer insurance to even people who are not a member with Texell Credit Union, but to anyone that comes within our book of business. We want to make sure that they're taken care of. And it means a lot to me where, hey, I've written a policy for someone and then their 8-year-old son turns 18 and they get a policy with us, But what makes it more rewarding is, when people unfortunately do get into accidents, but with the policy that has been written for them, takes care of them. And Chris, I got a really good story for you here. This is one of the proudest moments of my career. So we had a member years ago, and we were talking about an auto policy. So he came in, got him a quote, and we were going back and forth over the liability limits. He wanted state minimum limits. I told him, I was like, hey, sir, let's go with the 100, 300, 100 limits. It's literally $5 more a month. $5 more. It's not that much more. Let's go with it. And we were going back and forth. And it was to the point to where with this member, I told him, I was like, hey, if you want state minimum limits, we may not be the agency for you. Now with this member, his wife talked to him, and then he came back to me about a month later, and then we got him signed up with the auto policy with the 100, 300, 100 limits. This member is a fairly active member. We would see him come into that specific branch, I'd say once a week. And there was a 3-month lapse of him not coming in. And I was like, okay, that's a little weird. And I got a call from this member's son, and they were telling me they were hit. And because someone was driving on the wrong side of the road, and when they were hit, the car flipped over. It was a very nasty accident. He was in a coma for about a month and a half. His wife was in a coma for about 2 months. They had to go under extensive surgery. And by the time they called me, they were in the rehabilitation center. And as soon as I heard the call, I immediately went to the rehabilitation center to visit them. And little did I know, like, all their family was there. So I pulled up and I saw like 40 people here. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And they all looked at me like, well, who are you? I'm like, I'm the insurance guy. They were like, oh, you're Wes. I'm like, oh, you know me. So, but in that situation, what made it so rewarding, and going back to the conversation we had, and I'm so happy that I really pushed the 100, 300, 100 limits, was who hit him was a underinsured driver, someone that had state minimal limits. And just to just his surgery alone was a little bit over $80,000.
Wow.
Car completely wrecked.
But it was covered because they took what you suggested.
Yeah.
Wes, those are fantastic stories. I absolutely love hearing these. For our listeners out there who may be listening to this and thinking, geez, I need an insurance agent like you. What are some suggestions when it comes to finding an agent like yourself? What are qualities that agents such as yourself have, and what should consumers look for in their next insurance agent?
You want an agent that communicates value more than price. That's what you really need to look for, because an agent that communicates the value of the policy and why it's important to you in your situation is the agent that's looking out for your best interest. That's who you really want to speak with. You don't want to speak with the agent that is, if they're consistently talking about, okay, I'm going to get you at this price, and they're not explaining the coverages to you, they're not going through scenarios with you, those are agents you tend to want to stay away from. But the agents you definitely want to gravitate towards, and the companies you want to gravitate towards, is though that clearly communicate the coverages, whether you want them or not. They should be able to go through each and every one of those coverages with you so you can make an informed decision.
And also choose an agent that'll show up to your hospital bed when something unfortunate happens, right?
I did show up with a card, so yeah.
Awesome. Well, Wes, hey man, I really appreciate our conversation today. I know the world of consumer insurance may not be always the most exciting thing, but you've really made it very exciting, and a pleasure to speak with you today about it.
Thank you, Chris.
Well, folks, there you go. My name is Chris Haney, and I hope today was worth your time.